Hello, I'm Christian Garnett, and this is Cape Media News Insights. Today I'm here with two specialists to talk about the issue of right whale conservation around Cape Cod and worldwide. This is Lori Karen, and could you tell the people about what you do with IFAW and other right whale conservation efforts?
Sure. The right whale actually brought me to this whole topic, I think primarily as a longtime partner of a commercial fisherman. Kind of got me engaged quite some time ago. And most recently, I am a Northeast Marine campaigner for the International Fund for Animal Welfare, also known as IFAW, located right here on Cape Cod.
And Rob, how about you? What's your relation?
My name is Rob Martin. I've been a commercial fisherman all my life, and I also am a gear specialist for NOAA.
And as a gear specialist for NOAA, what do you do?
There's a lot of different things I do. I test weak rope. I talk to fishermen, which I'm still fishing also. I test on-demand gear, and if there's any kind of entanglements, if they get the rope off it, myself and some other individuals, we go through the rope to try to make a determination where it came from, a fishery, but most of the time it could just be rope, it could be cable, it could be anything, anchor, I mean anything.
After the whales have been successfully detangled from the entanglements, you would inspect it to see where that came from and what exactly went wrong, right?
Yeah, just to try to make a determination, the size of the rope, what kind of rope it is, if there's any distinctive gear marks on it.
What you're saying is anything that ends up in the ocean could potentially be a threat to a sea animal's life.
Yes.
And
discarded.
And it happens way too often.
Yes.
I assume. Do you feel that it's getting worse, the entanglement problems?
It's ship strikes, entanglements. There's just so many factors on everything. There's like a lot of stuff like graduation balloons. People let the balloons all go, and where do the balloons end up? They end up coming down the water with plastic, with strings. They can get wrapped on anything. Anything that's discarded, that's not discarded properly, usually winds up in the ocean.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how serious that problem is.
Yeah.
And this is Cape Cod. We're, at worst we're a peninsula, at best we're an island. There's water all around us. We can't be polluting so much, Tell me what the problem is. Why do right whales need a conservation day, which is this past Monday? What is the problem? Why are we looking at right whales?
And you just kind of hit the nail on the head really at a high level. I think, as we talk about balloons, all of us mean no ill will, right? That mother that's buying the balloons for that party wasn't thinking about the right whale, never would want to harm a whale, a sea turtle, or a creature. It's just we kind of need to re-educate ourselves a little bit. I saw a really great Facebook post the other day, and it was, use bubbles, not balloons, and it was how to make, at home, just bubbles with water and salt, and I don't remember the ingredients, but, to keep those plastics out of the water. I think we all collectively need to start thinking about that very consciously. And that kind of brings us to the right whale. As we talk about today's threats, I think you're going to primarily hear vessel strikes, climate change, and certainly entanglements. But I think none of those factors start with ill will. None of us want to harm the right whale. None of us ever intended our long-term, plans, method of fishing or ships or whatever were designed to harm the right whale, but now we're faced with a set of circumstances that we need to pay attention to and hopefully be smart about it and come up with innovative solutions collectively.
Part of the problem seems to be what we've already done to these animals, to these right whales. So I have some numbers here from the IFAW website that I'd like to bring up for the people at home. I think this really puts it into perspective. The North Atlantic right whale is a critically endangered species with fewer than 340 members left on the entire planet. And of those 340, IFAW estimates that only about 70 of them are females that can still breed.
Correct.
And at that level, as stated by IFAW itself, at that level, even the loss of a few of them could have major effects on the species as a whole. Do you have anything to add?
No, your numbers are accurate. You know, they're a great concern. And, you know, as you mentioned, it's going to take the collective effort of many, you know,
Right.
of the environmental conservation organizations, the fishermen, you know, the boating, you know, recreational boaters, large shipping companies, you know, all of us truly coming together, you know, combined solutions, not just one.
Which is what the two of you are doing. So you're working with IFAW. IFAW is also working with fishermen like Rob. It's the solution to this problem, at least on Cape, would be everybody working together. And I appreciate that.
Right.
And all fishermen always want to, stewards of the sea, we're always trying to do something.
Right.
Because if you didn't protect your fishery or anything, you wouldn't have anything.
So Massachusetts really stepped up as the leader many, many years ago with innovative gear modifications, and I think was the first to implement a closure in state waters to protect them to vertical lines. And the on-demand technology that we've mentioned is a way to find a way that the fishermen can thoughtfully coexist with the right whale.
To go into a closed area to
So
fish.
this is gear that has removed the static vertical line and allows us to fish. So kind of creative and exciting.
That is. The way that you, Rob, talk about this makes it sound like fishermen sort of have a symbiosis with the ocean, if that's the right word. I mean, I never thought about it, but you can't really have a fisherman who is not an environmentalist, because without the environment, they don't have a job.
True.
So I guess I never thought about it that way, but it's definitely that way.
Like I said, these closures and everything, they've affected certain guys different ways. Some guys, I used to fish full time, and there are a lot of other guys that fish full time now with year 9. Other guys are doing other stuff in the off season, but it just, the whales have tails, and if the whales are still hanging around, which is not good, you don't want to be setting gear around them. Like I said, they go in other areas. I mean, they're tracking these things from aerial surveys with acoustic monitoring buoys, slocum gliders, visual sightings. They're doing all kinds of stuff to see where they are and make the science better. These whales can travel all over the place. They can be down Great South Channel one day or south of Nantucket in Area 537 the following day. They can be in Cape Cod Bay, or they can shoot up into the Gulf of Maine, then come back, and they're all over the place. From here, they'll start heading up the coast north. They used to go to Bay of Fundy. Now the bulk of them are going to Gulf of St. Lawrence up in Canada, which there's a snow crab fishery up there, and different peninsulas in Canada. The lobster season's open at different times or closed at different times. After they leave the Gulf of St. Lawrence, they'll start migrating south to go down the calving grounds down off of Florida, Georgia, to give birth in the winter. And they start their migration path back up this way. A lot of them will come into Cape Cod Bay to feed in the copepods. I did some survey work for coastal studies a few winters and spring. I had some of the scientists on the boat actually tracking the right whales when they were around here, which is, I learned a lot doing that, and I always would ask questions, and just a lot of cool stuff.
And one of the largest challenges with the right whales is we've heard over the years that they can't be tagged. So, you know, as you...
Is that true?
Yes, and that it's been dangerous, that they haven't found a safe way in order to install a long-term tag to get us the information
Because you don't want to...
that we need so we can be a little more predicting of their behaviors. So they're not calling ahead to say, hey, can you clear the vertical lines, or we're coming. So, you know, this is where some of these protections have had to be so expansive and affected so many people, unfortunately, and it needs to be in place whether the whales are here or not here, but are anticipated to be here, you know, and it's hard. It is. It's hard for the industry, hard for all of us.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about their visits to Cape Cod waters in general?
Just personally, I think the behavior is fascinating. You know, the fact that the interest is here, that it appears that they're coming closer to shore.
Is that a good thing?
I would say for their safety, no. For public awareness, yes. You know, there is a 500-yard, is that correct? 500-yard rule, which is critical. You know, as a boater, you must stay. You see a right whale, run.
And 10 knots in Cape Cod Bay.
You must stay. You know, give them a distance. You know, for their natural behavior. So I think it could put them in peril. But it is important. So many people really don't know about the North Atlantic right whale and how fortunate we are to have them as visitors. So maybe there's a balance there. I'm not quite sure. One thing I find fascinating is that they have arrived in Cape Cod Canal, man-made waters.
I heard
And
about that.
yes, and choose to frolic, you know,
Yeah.
and provide entertainment, probably to the restaurateurs down there in the canal. I find their behavior fascinating, you know.
And it's great that we can watch them, and we can go on a whale watch. We can now see them go through the canal for whatever reason.
You can sit on any of the beaches sometimes whenever they're around and see them right off the beach.
Yeah, and that's great, but unless the conservation goes well, that's not going to be an option. That's not going to be a reality.
Right.
And I think it's important for people to realize that. Before we sat down, you were telling me about the direct negative impact of pollution in Cape Cod to
Any kind of
right
marine
whale,
life.
well, any
Yeah.
marine life, but in this case, right whale health. Tell me about the effects of pollution on our sea life.
Just like I said, plastics, water bottles, balloons, anything discarded. They'll feed on the surface, down below, or mid-water column. And if you ever seen them feeding on the surface, their head's out of the water, they're coming at you. It's like a tunnel you're looking at. They get the baleen that filters everything out, but they can still get stuff. Any marine mammal can swallow plastics, get stuff stuck in
Right.
anything. So
It's not good for any of us.
not good for any of us.
Right.
The bags, the balloons, when you get the plastic ties on the balloons, it's just like people are, I'll let it go, but it comes up, what goes up comes down, and it usually ends up in the ocean. Then we will be steaming home, we'll be picking up balloons floating on the surface. I mean, bunches of them sometimes, or like Father's Day balloon, Mother's Day balloons, Happy
Yeah.
Birthday balloons, or graduation balloons everywhere. Like I said, that's just for any marine life, it's not good. Once they deflate, pop, sink, they're on something will swallow it or
Yeah.
whatever.
Between 2003 and 2018, nearly 90% of all right whale deaths could have been definitively prevented if not for entanglement and vessel-induced trauma because of humans. Most untimely right whale deaths aren't like a shark or something, it's people. It's us throwing trash in the ocean. It's us hitting them with our boats. And I think it's just really depressing, but I think I'm also really glad that we have people like you two who care, and people like IFAW who are actually directly involved. I mean, that is what they do, and I think that's great.
The whales don't die of old age, a right whale.
Right. As far as we know.
Yeah, as far as we know.
We're not even giving them the chance.
Right. And just like we talked about balloons, nobody's starting out with any ill will. That was never the intention. And it takes a long time for awareness, right? You know, and then unfortunately, from awareness, it takes a long time for solutions, implementation,
Right.
regulatory framework, opportunities for equipment availability, or whatever it's going to take. You know, we're not a system that can react quickly, I would suggest. You know, so it's unfortunate, but really important to note. There's no ill will intended, and there's many bright-minded and thoughtful people trying to solve this problem.
I'm really glad to hear that. I really am. Lori, could you tell me about the new Massachusetts statewide Right Whale Day?
Absolutely. Super excited to share that with you. On Monday, I had the opportunity to actually participate in the celebration. April 24th was the first inaugural Massachusetts Right Whale Day. And it's a really sweet story, and it's really a testament that all of us can make a difference. It was an individual, I believe a gentleman by the name of Matt Delaney from Pembroke, Mass. And he petitioned his local representative, I believe Rep. Josh Cutler, for Right Whale Day in Massachusetts to bring recognition to the right whale, to the special, privilege that we in Massachusetts have for its presence here and the plight of the right whale today. So Representative Cutler took it all the way up, and I think on Governor Baker's final hour in office, it was actually signed into I believe the state legislature. So it was a celebration on Monday, certainly to celebrate Matt and his efforts, but it was also attended by Chief Hoffer, who spoke passionately about the right whale, its plight, really shared a great deal of detail that's important to all of us, just as you were describing, the breeding females, how many are left, and what we all need to do collectively. I was there representing IFAW, which I was so privileged to do, and be there with a couple of the gear manufacturers who have been innovators in this process to find ways that we can thoughtfully coexist in the lobster industry in Massachusetts with the North Atlantic right whale. And IFAW has taken it one step further and not only been supportive in many, many ways with resources, knowledge and connections, but also has brought forward some really important safety packages for some of these innovative fishermen that have been willing to step forward and test this gear in one of the most dangerous jobs already in America.
And that's where you come in.
And that's where he and other fishermen come in. And it's been an amazingly wonderful collaborative relationship. Even before I started as an employee of IFAW, I was actually collaborating and doing that work. And it took until I became a full-time employee to realize and see their mission clearly in front of me. As stated, it's humans and animals thriving together. And I think simply put, it's what we're all hopeful for, right? Yeah, what brings us here today.
Yeah. Well, Lori, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciated learning more about right whales and right whale conservation, Right Whale Day. Again, when is Right Whale Day?
April 24th.
April 24th.
April 24th.
Thank you again.
Excellent. Thank
Thank you.
you.
And this was Cape Media News Insights.